Hi there, I'm John McAdams, founder of the Big Game Hunting blog. In this video, we talk about the 300 Winchester Magnum and the 300 Winchester Short Magnum. Both are very popular and very effective 30 caliber cartridges, and you can use them on darn near everything from whitetail deer up to and including elk and moose with great results. Now, there is a lot of overlap in their performance and ideal use cases, but there are some important differences between them. Among other differences, each is ideally suited for different situations. There is also some substantial variation in the variety of rifles each cartridge is chambered in. The same is also true for ammunition. So with those things in mind, I investigate the 300 Winchester Short Mag versus 300 Winchester Mag in detail in this episode in order to provide some insight into which rifle cartridge is ideally suited for your specific hunting situation. Now, in addition to talking about the 300 Winchester Short Mag and 300 Win Mag, this video includes photos of animals taken with these two cartridges as well. Some are of me, some were submitted by members of the audience and used with their permission. Where applicable, details of the animal, rifle, cartridge, ammo used, shot distance, all that sort of stuff are in the video description, so check that out if you want to learn more. Now, I solicited photos from everyone on my email list as I was preparing this video, and if you would like to have the opportunity to contribute photos to a video in the future, make sure you are on my email list. To do that, click the link in the description below or go to huntingguns101.com. Sign up there to get the free ebook I have written on the best hunting cartridges. You'll get my free ebook when you do that, plus you'll also start to receive the emails I send out every weekday. These are entertaining and informative emails about hunting, shooting, ballistics, that sort of stuff. I get feedback all the time from people telling me how much they enjoy receiving those emails and how much they look forward to hearing from me every weekday. So make sure you're getting them too. Go to huntingguns101.com, sign up there, or click the link in the video description. Now, I've also put links below the video to articles I've written about these cartridges, as well as some rifles and hunting ammo I recommend using for each one. The same is also true for other pieces of hunting gear like slings, ear protection, rifles, scopes, all that sort of stuff. So check that stuff out too. And finally, be sure you subscribe to this channel. Click that red subscribe button below the video. Okay, let's get started talking about the 300 Win Mag and the 300 Winchester Short Magnum. Bottom line, how do these two cartridges stack up next to each other? The 300 Winchester Short Magnum is a smaller and more efficient cartridge than the 300 Win Mag, and it provides nearly the same ballistic performance out of a smaller package and does so with a little bit less recoil. It is also sometimes more readily available in smaller, lighter, and/or more compact rifles than the full-size 300 Win Mag. On the other hand, there is a much better selection of 300 Winchester Magnum rifles and ammunition available. The 300 Win Mag is also better suited for use with heavier bullet weights, and it often has slightly better ballistics than the smaller 300 Winchester Short Magnum. Okay, that's it for this episode. Thanks a lot for checking it out. Now, kidding aside, I just listed the basics of the similarities and differences between those two cartridges, but we can go into a lot more detail. Now, do you want to learn more about those details of how the cartridges compare to each other and the pros and cons of each one? To include how it's possible the much smaller 300 Winchester Short Magnum can sometimes match or even outperform the much larger 300 Win Mag? You came to the right place. I'll tell you everything you need to know about these two cartridges. We'll start with their history. Now, the first couple decades after World War II were a true renaissance of civilian firearm and cartridge development in the U.S. after the manufacturing base that produced gigantic quantities of weapons for use during the war switched over to firearm and ammunition development for civilian use, or rather switched back over to civilian use for those products. That time period saw a flood of new centerfire rifle cartridges like the .223 Remington, .243 Winchester, .280 Remington, and .308 Winchester. The 1950s and 60s also saw the start of the modern Magnum era when Winchester introduced a line of new belted Magnum cartridges utilizing a modified 375 H&H Magnum case. The big bore 458 Win Mag came on the scene first, 1956, and then it was soon followed by the 338 Win Mag and the 264 Win Mag in the next couple years. Designers at Winchester used the same playbook for all three cartridges. They took a 375 H&H Magnum case, shortened it from 2.85 inches to 2.5 inches long, and then necked it down or up, and then also took a little bit of taper out of the case. Now, designers used those shortened cases so all three cartridges would fit in a standard length rifle action, right? Same as a 30-06 or a 270, instead of the longer magnum length action required by the original full-size 375 H&H cartridge. Now, they were not perfect, but the 264 Win Mag, 338 Win Mag, and 458 Win Mag were all commercially successful to one degree or another. But Winchester didn't stop there. In 1963, Winchester released the next and by far the most successful commercially round in this line, the 300 Winchester Magnum. Built by using a modified 338 Win Mag case necked down to use a 30 caliber bullet, the 300 Winchester Magnum basically duplicated the performance of the old 300 H&H Magnum. Now, unlike that older 30 caliber Magnum, though, the 300 Win Mag utilized a shorter case that fit in that same standard length rifle action like the other new Winchester belted Magnums, as well as the new 7mm Remington Magnum Big Green released in 1962. Now, the 300 Win Mag offered a dramatic improvement in performance over the old 30-06 that also compared favorably to the 7mm Rim Mag in many areas. So the 300 Win Mag was an almost instant commercial success for Winchester, and the cartridge remains extremely popular to this day. Now, I mentioned the 300 H&H Magnum a second ago. That was an older British cartridge released in the 1920s, utilized a full-length Magnum case, basically a 375 H&H neck down to 30 caliber, but very long, skinny cartridge like that. So the 300 Win Mag was giving you ballistics almost identical to the 300 H&H Magnum, but it was doing so in a much smaller, more compact package that could fit in a smaller and cheaper to manufacture standard length rifle action. Now, as good as the 300 Win Mag was and is, though, it never fails. You release a new cartridge and people immediately start looking for ways to tweak it and quote-unquote improve upon it in one way or another. Now, like I just mentioned, you have these bigger cartridges like the 375 H&H, the 300 H&H, the 300 Weatherby Magnum, and the 300 Remington Ultra Magnum. Those are all physically pretty long cartridges. They all have an overall length of 3.6 inches, and they all require a full Magnum length rifle action. Now, many of the most popular centerfire rifle cartridges in the USA, like the 270, like the 30-06, are a little shorter. Those two cartridges both have an overall length of 3.34 inches instead of 3.6 inches. Those shorter cartridges will fit in what is commonly referred to as a standard action or a long action rifle. That, as you can imagine, is a little shorter than a Magnum length action. Other cartridges like the 6.5 Creedmoor and the 308, which have overall lengths of 2.825 inches and 2.81 inches, are even shorter still and will fit into what is commonly known as a short action rifle. Well, the 300 Win Mag was the result of efforts to duplicate the performance of the old 300 H&H Mag and a cartridge that would fit into a standard length rifle action. As you can imagine, other developers experimented with building a new cartridge that would duplicate the performance of the 300 Win Mag, but would fit in an even shorter package, small enough to function in a short action rifle. All right, why would anyone want to do this? Now, I mentioned a minute ago that it is less expensive for manufacturers to build a rifle with a standard length rifle action than is the case with a full length action. That is true. That is part of the calculus here. But there's some other things going on. So first, bench rest shooters discovered many years ago they could obtain a small but definite advantage in accuracy by using short, stubby cartridges instead of longer and skinnier cartridges. The 300 H&H Magnum is a very extreme example of a long, skinny cartridge. The 300 Winchester Magnum is a little bit shorter and a little bit fatter, but it's still a long-ish and skinny-ish cartridge. So people thought, what if you make it even shorter and fatter? Now, as you will learn here shortly, shooters and hunters can also enjoy some gains in efficiency from using a short, stubby cartridge compared to that longer and thinner cartridge. And the use of a physically shorter and more efficient cartridge can also enable gun manufacturers to produce shorter, lighter, and handier rifles as well. Now, the exact size of the rifle action does vary from company to company, but the basic trend is the same regardless of the exact rifle we're talking about when comparing short versus long versus Magnum actions. And yes, there are some cases where a company will use the exact same action for a short and a long action cartridge, or even a long and a magnum length action cartridge. But using that shorter overall cartridge length enables them to make their rifles physically smaller if they so choose. And even if they don't do that, you still get the benefits from the smaller cartridge in terms of efficiency and whatnot that I just mentioned. And in cases where a company is trying to build a rifle that is as light and compact as possible, it's just physically much easier to do that with a cartridge that is shorter, like a true short action cartridge, right? Makes sense. After all, that longer cartridge just simply requires more space to feed and eject than a cartridge that is a half an inch or about 3/4 of an inch shorter that you would get from going from a full magnum length cartridge down to a true short action cartridge. So that means it's possible to build a short action rifle that's a tiny bit shorter and a tiny bit lighter than an otherwise identical rifle with a standard length action. So not only is it possible to shave some length and weight off a rifle while retaining the same length barrel, shorter actions also give the shooter an advantage from a shorter bolt throw, as well as potentially an accuracy advantage due to their stiffer action. And as we'll talk about here in a second, those more efficient short and stubby cartridges can sometimes work as well as a longer cartridge, but do so out of a shorter barrel. So with all this in mind, designers at Winchester Repeating Arms elected to build a line of cartridges that could fit in a short length action with the goal of achieving similar performance to popular standard length cartridges. Basically, their stated goal was to give shorters and hunters all the benefits of a short action cartridge, like a 308, that's 308 sized cartridge, with essentially the same external ballistics as comparable standard length cartridges, like a full-size 270 Winchester or a 300 Winchester Magnum. So how did they accomplish those goals with their new line of Winchester short magnum cartridges? First, all those rounds use a much fatter case that is beltless, that more closely resembles the case used by the old 404 Jeffrey instead of using the 375 H&H Magnum as a parent case. So all the WSM cases have a 0.535-inch rebated rim that is compatible with a standard Magnum size bolt face, so same as the 375 H&H there. But they have a 0.555-inch case diameter, and since it does not have a belt, the actual body of the case is larger than those used by belted magnums like the 7 rim mag and the 300 Win mag. The actual case diameter, not counting the belt for those cartridges and everything else descended from the 375 H&H, has a 0.513-inch case diameter. So you compare that to the 0.555-inch case diameter of the WSM cases. And that is even bigger than the case diameter of common rifle cartridges with a more traditional design, like the 270, the 308, the 30-06, which have a 0.470-inch case diameter. Additionally, in stark contrast to, say, something like the 300 H&H, the Winchester Short Magnum cartridges all utilize a case with very minimal taper, and they also have a pretty steep 35-degree shoulder. So taken together, these factors all maximize the case capacity of the WSM cartridges, even though their overall length of 2.86 inches is still short enough to fit in a short-action rifle. Now, proponents of the WSM cartridges also argue that this results in a shorter and wider powder column that is more quickly ignited by the primer, and it burns more evenly than a comparable amount of powder in a longer and more narrow column. The idea here is to get a little bit improved accuracy and more efficiency for that shorter case. Now, the Winchester Short Magnum cartridges were not the first commercially produced short magnums. The 6.5 Remington Magnum, the 350 Remington Magnum, and the line of proprietary Lazzaroni cartridges all came on the scene before the WSM line. But none of those really caught fire for various reasons, though. But the situation was different, and Winchester made a big splash with the 300 Winchester Short Magnum in 2001, and they followed it up with the 270 Winchester Short Magnum and 7mm Winchester Short Magnum in 2002, and then they rounded out the lineup with the 325 Winchester Short Magnum in 2005. So if you just stand a 300 Winchester Magnum cartridge right next to a 300 Winchester Short Magnum cartridge, you're going to obviously see some very big difference right off the bat. First, the 300 Win Mag is a lot longer, right? That shouldn't be surprising, right? The 300 Winchester Short Magnum is specifically designed to fit in a short action rifle instead of the long action required by the longer 300 Winchester Magnum. However, while the 300 Win Mag is derived from the 375 H&H and it uses a fatter case than cartridges like the 308 and 30-06, the 300 Short Mag uses an even fatter case descended or inspired by the 404 Jeffrey. The 300 Short Mag also has that beltless case that I just mentioned with a rebated rim, body diameter 0.555 inches. The 300 Winchester Magnum uses a belted case with a diameter 0.532 inches at the belt and just 0.513 inches around the body diameter of the case right above the belt. The 300 Short Mag also has a steeper 35-degree shoulder angle compared to just 25 degrees for the 300 Win Mag. All those factors contribute to a surprisingly robust case capacity for the 300 Short Mag, considering how short it is overall, but the 300 Win Mag still has about 12% more case capacity than the Short Mag here, though, because, like I said, it's just longer. Now, on the other hand, the 300 Short Mag is loaded to a slightly higher maximum SAMI average pressure of 65,000 psi versus 64,000 psi for the 300 Win Mag. Both cartridges shoot the same 308 diameter bullets, and indeed many factory loads for the two cartridges use the exact same bullets. They also have the same SAMI standard 1 and 10 inch twist rate. That's the most common twist rate in rifles manufactured for the two cartridges. There are some exceptions. We'll go into more detail there later on. Now, while there is a giant overlap in common bullet weights for the two cartridges, there are some differences in the most common bullet weights they use, though. For instance, the 300 Win Mag commonly uses bullets in the 150 to 220 grain range. 150, 165, 180, 190, and 200 grain bullets are most common there. Now, the 300 Winchester Short Magnum also typically uses bullets in that similar 150 to 200 grain range, but it's not as common with heavier bullet weights. We'll discuss this in more detail later on, but though there are 300 Short Mag factory loads using 180, 190, and 200 grain bullets, they're not quite as common for the 300 Short Mag as they are with the 300 Win Mag. Now, the physical size differences in those two cartridges result in some very interesting ballistic performance. So in some cases, the 300 Winchester Short Mag and 300 Win Mag factory loads often fire the exact same bullet at virtually identical velocities. The 300 Win Mag will usually, but not always, enjoy a small velocity edge over the 300 Short Mag. This is the case with Hornady Precision Hunter factory ammo. Both rounds are available in that line and are loaded with the same 200 grain ELDX bullet, but the 300 Win Mag has a very small 30 feet per second advantage in muzzle velocity. That's an incredibly small practical difference. In fact, depending on the exact brand of factory ammo we're talking about, the 300 Winchester Short Mag may actually have a faster published velocity. Now, at the same time, some companies offer factory loads for the 300 Win Mag with heavier bullets than is the case with the 300 Short Mag. So, for instance, Barnes Vortex factory ammunition illustrates both of these points well. The 300 Win Mag is available with 150, 165, and 180 grain TTSX bullets in that line, while the 300 Short Mag is only available with 150 and 165 grain TTSX bullets. However, Barnes actually advertises a slightly faster velocity for the 165 grain loading for the 300 Short Mag, but it's just 10 feet per second faster, but it is advertised as being faster. With all that in mind, I decided to do a comparison to illustrate how the 165 grain TTSX loadings, 0.442 BC, and 200 grain ELDX loadings, 0.597 BC, from Hornady and Barnes for both cartridges perform. I also included the 180 grain TTSX load for the 300 Win Mag in the comparison as well. Now, as you can imagine, the Hornady 300 Win Mag shoots a little bit flatter and hits with a little bit more kinetic energy than the 300 Short Mag load because it has a faster muzzle velocity. But the difference between them is so small, it's probably not even worth considering. The same is true for the Barnes loads, but with the 300 Short Mag shooting a bit flatter and hitting a little bit harder in this case. Bottom line, virtually no difference in the trajectory of each cartridge. In fact, we may even see bigger variations in velocity when going from one 300 Win Mag or 300 Short Mag rifle or ammo to another than we're seeing in the advertised performance of these two cartridges with factory ammo. So let's talk about another important factor, wind. So when you have a 10 mile an hour crosswind with these same loads, same general trends hold here. faster loads having better performance in the wind because, with the exception of that 180 grain TTSX having a little bit higher BC than the 165 grain TTSX, in each case, we're looking at bullets with the exact same ballistic coefficient. But that's one area where that 180 grain 300 Win Mag load does have a bit of an advantage over the 165 grain 300 short mag and 300 Win Mag loads, since it uses a heavier bullet with a higher ballistic coefficient. But for all intents and purposes, we can say that these two cartridges have the same ballistics. But external ballistics don't tell the whole story, though. Let's talk about recoil. So when you compare recoil produced by hand loads that are very similar to the 200 grain loads for both cartridges when fired from identical rifles, you'll see the 300 short mag has the advantage here. Both cartridges have very similar recoil, but this is a great example of the efficiency of the 300 short mag on display. It shoots the same weight bullet at the same velocity from the same weight rifle, but it uses 5.5% less powder to achieve that performance. So the end result is the 300 short mag has about 7.5% less free recoil energy here. This is along the same lines of the 280 Ackley improved versus the 7mm rim mag, right? The 280 Ackley has ballistics virtually identical to the 7 mag, but with a little less recoil because it's more efficient, uses less powder to achieve that same velocity with the same weight bullet. Now, that's not a gigantic difference, but it's certainly not nothing either. Now, I feel like both cartridges have the sort of recoil many people can handle without a lot of trouble, especially if you're shooting a rifle that fits you well, has a good recoil pad, or is equipped with a muzzle brake or a suppressor. But the fact that the 300 short mag can indeed perform very close to the level of the 300 Win Mag with less recoil is certainly nothing to sneer at, and it is worth considering for those who want to hunt with lighter rifles and or for those who just want to have a little bit less recoil. Now, there's a couple other factors worth considering, though. For instance, that fat and stubby design of the 300 short mag, combined with the cartridge very steep shoulder angle, can sometimes present feeding problems. It's not a guarantee, of course. Many 300 short mag rifles actually feed really well. Now, what about accuracy of these cartridges? After all, fans of the Winchester short mag cartridges like to point out the benefits of those shorter and fatter cartridge designs and the shorter and fatter powder columns they utilized. And the 300 short mag actually does have a slightly longer case neck than the 300 Win Mag too. All things considered, the 300 Winchester short magnum likely does gain at least some accuracy benefit from its overall design. However, while that may contribute to better accuracy, there are many other factors that influence accuracy to a much larger degree, like the individual rifle, ammo, and shooter in question. Both are capable of great accuracy. I wouldn't say there's a significant difference between them in accuracy potential, at least due to just solely the cartridge, but the 300 short mag probably has a very slight edge in this case. Now let's talk about ammo availability. Both cartridges are extremely popular all over the world, and especially in the USA. In fact, both are actually among the top 10 best-selling rifle cartridges in the USA each year. The 300 Win Mag is the most popular and most widely available of the two, though. Now, the 300 short mag is easily the most popular of all the Winchester short magnum rifle cartridges, but the 300 Win Mag is likely the single most popular magnum cartridge, right? More popular than all the Winchester short mags, the 7 Rim Mag, the 28 Nosler, the 300 Rum, all that stuff. This is reflected in the ammo availability department. For instance, Midway USA currently lists 35 Winchester short mag loads on their website, and they have 76 300 Winchester Magnum loads as I record this. Pretty much every big ammo manufacturer like Barnes, Browning, Federal, Hornady, Nosler, Remington, Winchester produce a really good variety of ammo for both cartridges. But a few companies make 300 Win Mag ammo, but not 300 short mag ammo, like Berger, Black Hills, PPU, and Swift. Now, like I mentioned earlier, companies often load the 300 Win Mag and 300 short mag ammo to very similar velocities with the same bullet weights, but the 300 short mag ammo is often advertised at a slightly lower velocity, right? 10, 20, 30 feet per second shorter. And like I also mentioned earlier, many manufacturers do not offer 300 short mag ammo and heavier bullet weights. Now, like I mentioned too, Barnes produces the 300 Win Mag with 150, 165, 180 grain TTSX bullets, but only with 150 and 165 grain bullets for the 300 short mag. The situation is similar with Remington. They offer 150, 180 grain core lock loads for the 300 Win Mag, but only a 150 grain offering for the short mag. Hornady offers the 300 Win Mag in their American whitetail lineup with a 180 grain interlock, but only produces the short mag with a 165 grain interlock in that same line. Now, some popular factory offerings are not available in the short mag either. For example, Nosler produces 300 Win Mag ammo with both 180 and 200 grain partition bullets, but does not produce any factory loads with the partition for the 300 short mag. Now, Federal does offer a load with a 180 grain, but not a 200 grain partition, though, for the 300 short mag. Barnes offers the 300 Win Mag in their Vortex long range lineup with a 190 grain LRX. They do not offer the 300 short mag in this line at all. Now, that's not the case with every company either. Like I said, some lineups feature 300 Win Mag and 300 short mag loads using the exact same bullet at identical or nearly identical velocities. I mentioned earlier the Hornady Precision Hunter line, both using 200 grain ELDX bullets. Federal also produces both ammo for both cartridges in the Terminal Ascent line, both using 200 grain Terminal Ascent bullets. The Nosler Trophy Grade long range line has both loads, both using 190 grain Accubon long range bullets. And same is also true with the Winchester PowerPoint line, both using 180 grain PowerPoint bullets. Now, you take all those things together. There are exceptions every now and then, and prices and availability do vary from region to region. But in general, I'll say the 300 Win Mag is by far the most common of the two and is usually a little bit less expensive to find factory ammo for. In fact, the 300 Winchester Short Magnum was especially hard hit by the 2020 to 2023 ammo shortage, and it remained much more difficult to find ammo for long after things had nearly returned to normal for the 300 Win Mag on that front. So bottom line, ammunition variety, pricing, and availability are generally better across the board for the 300 Win Mag when compared to the 300 Short Mag. And the 300 Win Mag also provides more options for those who prefer to use a heavier bullet and for those who want to squeeze as much performance from their cartridge as possible with slightly faster muzzle velocities. I'm not going to tell you the 300 Win Mag is a quantum leap in performance over the 300 Winchester Short Magnum, because it's not, but if you want all that you can get, they're close, but the 300 Win Mag is going to be a little bit hotter usually. That doesn't always make a difference. Not everybody needs that, but that is one of the advantages in favor of this cartridge too. Now, click the link in the show notes or in the video description to learn more about other 300 Win Mag and 300 Short Mag factory ammo options that I like. And I discuss that stuff in more detail at those links. All right, let's talk about rifles. Rifle situation, very similar to the ammo situation for these cartridges. Rifles chambered in 300 Win Mag are by far the most common, but you've still got a pretty good selection of rifles for the Short Mag. For example, Sportsman's Warehouse currently lists 83 300 Short Mag rifles and 334 300 Winchester Magnum rifles. You can find both in a lot of different types of bolt-action hunting rifles: Browning AB3, Browning X-Bolt, Christensen Arms Ridgeline, Remington 700, Savage 110, Tikka T3X, Winchester Model 70, Winchester XPR, for example. Both are also available with the Browning lever-action rifle if you don't want a bolt-action rifle. Now, the 300 Win Mag is also available in some rifles not manufactured in 300 Short Mag, like the Ruger American and Hawkeye. As I record this, Ruger does not currently make any 300 Short Mag rifles. The Howa 1500, another example. Mossberg Patriot, Weatherby Vanguard, another example. Now, remember what I mentioned earlier about the cartridges generally having the same rifling twist rate. Usually true, not a hard and fast rule, though. For instance, Browning produces their Speed LR and Max LR versions of the X-Bolt in 300 Win Mag, but not 300 Short Mag. These rifles use faster 1 and 8 inch twist rates. This facilitates the use of even longer and higher BC 30 caliber bullets, like the 212 grain ELDX from Hornady with a .663 BC. That bullet is usually offered as a factory load in the 300 PRC because you need a faster 1 and 8 inch rifling twist rate to stabilize it. So it normally won't work in a rifle with a 1 and 10 inch twist rate, but you use one of those Browning rifles with the faster twist rate, you can hand load 300 Win Mag ammo with that bullet if you so choose. That is not an option for factory rifles anyway for the 300 Short Mag right now. Now let's talk about barrel lengths. Now, gun manufacturers tend to put longer barrels on rifles chambered in Magnum cartridges like the 300 Win Mag. This is because those cartridges need a longer barrel to effectively and efficiently burn that larger powder charge. Now, the 300 Win Mag is commonly available in rifles with 24 and 26 inch long barrels. But you'll occasionally run across rifles with a shorter, say, 22-inch barrel as well, like the new Browning X-Bolt 2 speed suppressor ready. Among other models, Tikka also makes their T3X Hunter and super light models in 300 Win Mag with a 22.4-inch barrel. On the other hand, while 24-inch barrels are also pretty common on 300 short mag rifles, 23-inch and even 22-inch barrels are much more popular with this cartridge than they are for the 300 Win Mag. Now, both cartridges will deliver reduced velocities out of shorter barrels, but you're probably going to see a faster drop off with velocity and more variation from shot to shot in your velocity with the 300 Win Mag with a short barrel than is the case with a 300 short mag with a shorter barrel. That goes back to what I was saying earlier about the 300 short mag being more efficient and utilizing a little less powder to achieve the same velocities. If you don't need to utilize quite as much powder, you don't need quite as long of a barrel to efficiently and effectively burn all of that powder. Both cartridges are often available in rifles of the same size and length, but it's important to note that the 300 short mag will have an advantage in general over the 300 Win Mag for those looking for compact and or lighter rifles because it's a short action cartridge. Here's an example that illustrates this point. Browning manufactures their X-Bolt speed rifle in both cartridges. The variant in 300 short mag has a 23-inch barrel, overall length of 43 inches, weighs 6 pounds, 8 ounces. The 300 Win Mag variant has a 26-inch barrel, is 46.75 inches long, and weighs 6 pounds, 13 ounces. So the 300 Win Mag version is 5 ounces heavier and is 3 3/4 of an inch longer overall. So as you can see, the 300 short mag rifle is definitely lighter and more compact. Having a shorter and handier rifle is more important on some hunts than on others, so keep that in mind. Now, to learn more about other 300 Win Mag rifles that I specifically recommend, click the link in the show notes or the video description. So where do we stand overall? Let's circle all the way back to the beginning. Both have virtually identical ballistics, but the 300 Win Mag often fires the same weight bullet a little faster and is more available with heavier bullet weights. Rifle and ammo selection is better for the 300 Win Mag, but the 300 Winchester Short Magnum has less recoil and is usually available in smaller and lighter rifles. So with all that in mind, which one is right for you? Do you primarily hunt medium-sized game like whitetail deer, feral hogs, black bear at ranges within 200 yards? Both are extremely effective deer hunting cartridges, and they will absolutely get the job done on medium-sized game if you do your part. There really isn't a significant difference between these two cartridges on deer inside 200 yards, and both are more than powerful enough for that sort of work. If you're going to be hunting in thick brush or in the tight confines of a deer stand, remember what I just mentioned about the overall length and barrel length of rifles available in these cartridges. That extra couple inches in overall length of a rifle can be a real headache to deal with when trying to quickly and quietly maneuver for a shot. I wouldn't say either is a bad choice here, but of the two, a 300 short mag rifle with a 20 or 22-inch barrel will definitely be easier to handle than a 300 Win Mag rifle, especially if it has a 24-inch or 26-inch barrel. On the other hand, rifle and ammo selection is much better for the 300 Win Mag, so it's just a matter of what your priorities are here and what you value. Now, are you looking for the cartridge better suited for a long-range hunting for game like mule deer or pronghorn in open country where you might need to take a shot at several hundred yards? Once again, they'll both work really well in this role, and situations like these are where they start to stand apart from other cartridges. The 300 Win Mag has a better selection of heavy, high BC bullets than the 300 Short Mag, but there are still a couple of really good high BC options for the 300 Short Mag here too that perform nearly identically to the 300 Win Mag that also potentially have a little bit less recoil and also fit into a smaller package. So I'm not going to say one is better than the other here. Once again, think about what your priorities are, your specific hunting situation, and pick the one that you think is better for you in these situations, considering the pros and cons of each one. Now, what if you want a hunting cartridge that is better suited for bigger game? Caribou, moose, elk, eland, kudu, red stag, something like that. Again, both will work great here when used on bigger game in North America, Africa, Europe, elsewhere. On one hand, the slightly higher muzzle velocities and, more importantly, the better selection of heavy bullets make the 300 Win Mag more appealing to me in this area. On the other hand, an extra 30 feet per second of muzzle velocity isn't going to matter that much in the grand scheme of things. Now, especially if you were taking advantage of the heavier bullets that are available for the 300 short mag, there's also a lot to like about the cartridge with the advantages it provides in terms of reduced recoil and availability in more compact rifles. But I don't think there's enough of a difference between the two cartridges to really make much hay out of here. If the better selection of rifles and ammo is more important to you, go with the 300 Win Mag. If you prioritize the fact that you can get 300 Win Mag performance out of a short action rifle with less recoil, go with the 300 Short Magnum. Both will work great on the same spectrum of game here. Between my friends, clients, family, and me, we have cleanly taken basically every species of game you can think of, from whitetail deer and javelina up through black bear, hogs, the whole spectrum of African plains game, to include the bigger and tougher species like gemsbok, wildebeest, zebra, sable, kudu, and eland, as well as elk and moose with both cartridges. It worked great in each case. This is an area where I really point people towards that 200 grain terminal ascent loading for both cartridges. Now click that ammo link I mentioned earlier for the cartridge that you are thinking about using in the show notes to learn more about it. But bottom line, this is a pretty new loading that's been around only a couple years, but I've known a lot of people that have used it with a lot of success in both the short mag and the Win Mag on all sorts of game, and they have nothing but good things to say about it. So especially if you're thinking about using the Winchester Short Magnum on elk or moose or something big like that, really look hard at that particular factory load. And that exact same bullet, which is wonderful, is available in the 300 Win Mag 2, and it also performed great. Now, like I've said many times before, you take the same type of bullet and the same caliber, same weight, same impact velocity, does not matter what cartridge you launch it out of. As long as those other variables are all the same, it's going to have the same effect on the animal. Now, are you looking for a great cartridge for stuff like sheep, mountain goat, tahr hunting, where you need an effective cartridge with more manageable recoil and a lighter weight and easier to carry rifle? The 300 Win Mag will certainly work. I killed a really nice bull tahr with my 300 Win Mag, but of the two, I give the nod to the 300 Short Mag here because it's a short action cartridge and it's available in shorter, lighter, easier to carry rifles, and doesn't have terrible recoil. Now, are you specifically hunting dangerous game like brown or grizzly bear? What if you hunt in Canada or Alaska and you need a heavy-hitting cartridge in case you find yourself on the business end of a brown or a grizzly bear? Both will absolutely work on the bigger bears, and I don't see a tremendous amount of difference between them at typical hunting ranges. That said, I would definitely prefer to carry something heavier like a 338 Win Mag or a 375 Ruger or a 375 H&H in grizzly country. But if you use either of these 30 caliber magnums, use premium, heavy for caliber, 180 grain plus bullets if you take either cartridge to grizzly country. 200 grain terminal ascent bullets I keep mentioning are a great choice here. Are you sensitive to recoil and you need a lower recoiling cartridge? Both have fairly stout recoil, but the 300 Short Mag is definitely the better recoiling option here. Now, really, like I've mentioned a couple times too, I personally place a large emphasis on ammo and rifle availability in my firearms purchases and my prospective firearms purchases. The ammo shortage of 2020 to 2023 was pretty bad all around, but it was especially bad for the 300 Short Mag. So I urge you not to overlook this fact if you are considering getting a 300 Short Mag. It will work great for you, but make sure you lay on a good supply of ammo your rifle likes. Otherwise, you might have an expensive paperweight if we have to deal with another severe ammo shortage in the future. Both are great rifle cartridges, and there is a tremendous amount of overlap in their performance, but don't forget their differences either. But like I said, though, the 300 Short Mag and the 300 Win Mag are suitable for many hunting tasks, ranging from hunting North American game to plains game in Africa to deer in the southern hemisphere. Carefully analyze your potential needs before making a decision. And do not forget the logistical side of things either. Really, it's the logistical side of things, the availability and the pricing of ammo and rifles for both cartridges that pushed me more in the 300 Win Mag camp at the expense of the 300 Short Mag for me personally here. But that said, I would not blame anybody at all for choosing a 300 Short Mag depending on their individual situation. I think it's a great rifle cartridge too, and it does have those undeniable advantages that are small but can be very important in some respects. Now, if you enjoyed this video, please make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel right now and hit that like button. Just click the thumbs up button and red subscribe button below the video to make sure you don't miss out on any of my new videos about hunting gear reviews, cartridge comparisons, and more. And like I mentioned earlier, I've also put links below the video to articles I've written about these cartridges, as well as some of my favorite rifle and ammo recommendations for the 300 Win Mag and 300 Winchester Short Mag, along with other pieces of hunting gear, slings, ear protection, scopes, that sort of stuff. Now, for more detailed information on other popular hunting cartridges and what they're best suited for, click that other link in the description below or go to huntingguns101.com. Sign up there to get my ebook I've written on the best hunting cartridges, and you'll start to get the emails I send out every weekday. Now I'm going to turn it over to you. Have you hunted with either of these 30 caliber cartridges? If so, which one? What game have you successfully taken with each cartridge? What ammo and rifle did you use in each case? Let me know by leaving a comment on this video right now. And you can also feel free to leave a comment with requests for other cartridge comparisons you would like to see from me in the future. Thanks for watching, have a great day, and good hunting.